Here we are with another week of Parenting Paused. This is an act of love for me, this podcast, because I didn't have a lot of support when my daughter was young. She's 23 now. And I kind of felt like I was forging a new path. And that's always kind of been the case for me. I actually like diving deep inside and questioning my conditioning, and therefore landing in a different or a deeper level of consciousness. So I wanted to talk about that because the level of consciousness of conditioning is not wrong or bad. There's just, in Pure Joy, I like to show you a doorway that you can enter to go to a deeper level of consciousness where we don't take things so personally. Now, let's talk about that, because when we take them personally, I'll speak for myself, when I took things personally, again, it was in a different level of consciousness. It was in a personal level of consciousness where I thought all these things about myself. I thought all these things about my child. I thought all these things about parenting. And most of them had to do with like these ideas that I had learned, these templates that I had learned growing up. It was like I had somebody kind of sitting on my shoulder telling me what I was doing wrong, what I was doing right. And I wasn't able to go down that door or open that door to a deeper level where I could actually view what was happening right in front of me and tap into my wisdom of what was actually needed in the moment. And so when I was personalizing things, it all had to do with my personal story of myself. And that personal story, remember, is a learned story. We learn it, again, as I say, from our caregivers. We learn it from our culture. We learn it from our spiritual quest or our religions. We learn it at school. Again, remember, the brain is very malleable when we're young. It's very profound, the influences of childhood. And we take in our little bodies and our little minds, we take in all this information and we come to conclusions. And most of the time we come to conclusions about ourselves that are false. And yet we don't question those, because those young conclusions were smart conclusions. They created your persona or your personal self, but they weren't always correct because they were created, I'll say, from a very young consciousness or a very young conclusion, such as I concluded that I wasn't important and that I didn't matter. I was the third child in a family where there wasn't a lot of money. My dad was just entering medical school. And so there wasn't a lot there for me. My needs weren't that very important. I was a happy child, my mom said. Thank goodness for her. She had two more difficult older children. And so I came to the conclusion that my needs didn't matter, that I wasn't important. And so again, you can see how this persona, this is my personal story. So in my parenting, anytime my daughter wouldn't listen to me or she wouldn't do what I asked her to do, or all of those things that happened, it would always fall into that level of consciousness on the personal level. I would hear this voice talking to me, telling me that I wasn't important and I didn't matter. And it would go, see? So every time something would happen and I would look for evidence for those conclusions, I would hear this voice go, see, your needs don't matter. See, you're not important. And you can imagine how challenging that was to really turn toward that personal story and to really update it into the truth. That's kind of the doorway. I had to open the door, really go in and look at that belief system and realize that, yes, that made sense when I was a child, those conclusions. And yet that wasn't the truth as an adult. And when I dropped into that deeper level of consciousness, I didn't have to make my daughter the location of the one that was always making me unimportant. because she wasn't. She was just being her beautiful child self, learning in this world that we live in. So this week, if you're listening, just ask yourself, like, maybe what are some of those conclusions that your personal self believes that if you open the door and enter into a deeper level of truth and reality as an adult, you may be able to update those stories. And my update is my needs are important and my child's needs are important. It's not one or the other, that we can both live in this beautiful family of ours and both of our needs can be met. Maybe at different times, but there is enough, there's abundance within our world that both of our needs can be met. Have a great week this week, and I'll see you next week on Parenting Paused. Thank you for listening to this episode of Parenting Paused. If you enjoyed the episode, do me a favor and share it with your mama friends. You can also leave a review wherever you listen, which will support getting the Pure Joy message out. Come on over to the Pure Joy Parenting Practice Facebook page or join me on Instagram to hear more. And don't forget to download your free copy of the Safe Seat course on the Pure Joy website. And while there, check out the offerings page to go deeper in the Pure Joy work.